Okay, go ahead.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Citizen Police Review Commission being held July 7, 2021. It seems as though we have a quorum, so I will call this meeting to order.
Can I just do a quick roll call just for the record? Commissioner Liu, oh, okay, here she comes, right. So let me go ahead and not start with her. Commissioner Marsh?
Here.
Commissioner Richman?
Here.
Commissioner Strickland?
Here.
Commissioner Whitmore?
Here.
Commissioner Graham? Commissioner Ross? Commissioner Luley?
Sorry, here.
Chair Shambi?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you for that, Kimberly. If I can have someone, I don't know, it might be our last time doing this, but if I can have someone read the government executive order.
Oh, I can read it. As a result of an executive order issued by Governor J.B. Pritzker suspending in-person attendance requirements for public meetings, commission members and city staff will be participating in this meeting remotely.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second. I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Having opposition, that will be the order. The second thing we have on our agenda, moving along, is our approval of the April 7, 2021 meeting minutes. I know it's been a while since we've been here, but if I can have someone motion to approve the April 7, 2021 minutes.
This is Blanca Luley. I move to approve.
May I have a second, please?
I second.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, any opposed, say nay. Having no opposition, we'll be approving the April 7, 2021 meeting minutes. Next on our agenda is public comment. I am not seeing anyone from the public to have public comment, so we will move forward on our agenda. We next have our items for consideration. We only have one complaint at this meeting, and this is a complaint that's come before this commission before, which was the review of Department Inquiry 2013. This will be our third time speaking on this issue. So if I can have someone move to begin discussion on DI 2013, please.
Well, my question would be, why are we still reviewing this?
Before we can get to that question, we need to move to be able to discuss.
Oh, I move to discuss DI 20-13.
I have a second.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I saw some mouths move, say aye, but I have two that aren't.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Having no opposition, we can begin discussion on DI 2013. Commissioner Marsh, you had a question on this.
And my question was, I guess, I remember this. I remember having discussions on this a couple of times. I guess I probably really need to kind of, when I look at the recommendations, for this particular officer, I mean, the recommendation is, you know, he should have been, there wasn't communication with the complaint. I mean, there was communication, but it wasn't communication enough. I'm assuming from our perspective, for us to really kind of hone in and say, you know, this was that he handled it in the right way. And I'm not quite sure if he was reprimanded in the right way.
If I could jump in here real quick and kind of revisit how we got to this point and what actions we took since the last time we met. This was a DI that we reviewed before. There was a request from the committee to send it back. From our side, from OPS, we wanted also the committee to review as part of that second, their second review, we wanted the body worn camera video watched. We did that last time. The watching that body worn camera video brought forth more questions and concerns about the completeness of this DI and this investigation. So it was brought back for a third review, and the committee's concerns and what they thought was incomplete in the investigation to be addressed are outlined in the April 8th memo to acting deputy chief, and chief. Again, I think going through the updated rule violations that may have been omitted the first time that should have been there. Review some points of interest on the body worn camera footage that needed to be pointed out, highlighted directly. Questions that needed to be answered coming from our last conversation. And then kind of the conclusion that also included some direction. And then that's what brought us to, I think, is the completion of our third review.
So the question I have on here is, what changed from, I mean, this looks like what we sent back before. I know last time we spoke on this, we were also, there was additional video from one of the other officers.
Yeah,
there what?
I'm sorry, we do have something, the video that was requested. The end of the other officer's body worn camera footage to see what the conversation was. We do have that available.
Okay. And then I know that we also had some questions about the completeness of not only investigating this officer that the complainant answered, but that there were other officers that should have also had some sort of the review should have focused on them as well. And so are we seeing anything on that? Or I just from reading what we just recently got, I'm not seeing anything different from what we looked at before.
Well, yeah, there was a second officer, the more senior officer. It was felt that was not fully addressed. I think that it has in this review, all the questions that were asked that came from this committee, the questions that are outlined in rule in the April 7th or 8th memo have been addressed. Now, recommendations may not have changed. Our third review did it. I'm sorry, what was that?
I think you can move on. Maybe that was just a blip.
Oh, so I can look. You said if there's points, I apologize. I do not have paper memos in front of me. Off screen, I have another computer that's got all of it in PDF. So as I scroll through and come up with to review points that we talk about, it might be a couple minutes for me to find those memos that we're referencing. But again, I'm going to go back to the memo that was drafted pursuant to our last meeting, directing supervisors that did the third review to answer those questions specifically.
And to Janitha, to answer your question, it looks like on page 15 of the PDF for this meeting, so the redacted third review file, on page 15, it lays out the recommendations And it does address all three officers. So the officer who sort of responded to the scene, and then the other two officers that were present, and recommended shift level counseling and additional training for all three of them, it looked like. Which I don't think was part of the recommendation the previous time around. I think the last time we reviewed it, it was only training for the one officer. This time it's for all three.
I think that our last review, I think that the criticism that there were some glaring omissions with regards to what was addressed was completely fair. And we definitely instructed the supervisors not to gloss over things that we were in agreement with the committee on, as far as, you know, if somebody did not address something, somebody failed to fully investigate an issue that needed to be addressed, even if that person wasn't specifically named in the initial complaint from several months back. There is varying degrees of, I think that somebody might look at this and go, well, there was probable cause to make an arrest absent any further investigation. That is one way to look at it. Some people may look at it and go, well, maybe that's not the failure. The failure was you didn't investigate, the officers on scene didn't investigate enough to even make that determination. I think that at a bare minimum would be accurate. Anything above that is also open, possible. But I think that has been addressed, including, again, I apologize, there is a part in the memo when we talk about the bias. We did specifically instruct people to review this for implicit or explicit bias. It was done. That was listed as a rule violation taken from our policies that were spelled out. And the officer that reviewed it also not only did notice or did pick up, but there was a consistency that there was no enforcement action taken, even in other parts of the investigation where an individual, not the driver, admitted to drinking underage, and there was no enforcement action taken there as well. So the enforcement action may have been lacking, but it was consistent.
I think from my perspective, our role, and I think Kimberly, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but our role is to decide whether or not the investigation is thorough. And now with our third review and everything that you guys have done in OPS, I do feel 100% that the investigation is thorough. I completely disagree with it, but I think at this point we're beating a dead horse because that's not our job. We don't get to decide whether or not that's the outcome that we would want, or whether or not we think that that's the right sanctions for those officers. Because I think universally, I'm going to speak on behalf of all of us on the commission, and please jump in if I'm not speaking properly, but that we as a commission don't agree with these sanctions against these officers. But the investigation is thorough, and we've kicked it back 3 times. You guys have done your job. We can't change the outcome at this point. We can't change the sanctions at this point because the investigation is thorough. And Kimberly, isn't that our job? I mean,
that is correct. I mean, yes, that is the correct response to the role of this commission. However, even though the investigation has been completed, the disposition is not. The final sign off is the chief. That does not occur until after this has gone through the process of review. And so the chief does take back some of that feedback. But this, from the shift level on up, it is complete. However, the chief can take in consideration and decide to enact additional discipline or additional form of discipline as one chooses. But as to this commission, you are correct. It will go to the human services with understanding that it's thorough, with no consideration on the type of discipline, since that is at the prerogative of the police chief. So I just want to make that clear. If I'm not speaking from behalf of you, Commander Glew or
No.
Sergeant Warnick.
So in essence,
Go ahead, Ray.
so in essence, we're one of, 3 levels. You have the investigative piece of it. You have our involvement, and then you have human services, and then you have the police commission, right? Maybe 4 levels. So we're just one of 4 levels in terms of determine if indeed, this warrants a change.
And I guess one question I have sort of following on to what Kimberly just said, and picking up on what you said, Shahna, even if we agree that it can be passed on to HR based on the completeness, can we include a note in there that although we agree it's complete, we don't necessarily agree with the outcome or the decision on whether or not bias played a role in the failure to arrest or do any kind of field sobriety testing, or sort of carry it on to the sort of logical conclusion that we all thought it should have ended with. So just some sort of note that we don't necessarily agree with the outcome, but we don't think there's any need for it to go back one more time.
So can I just speak to that? Because I think this is where I think there's some, the whole idea of this commission, and being that I've been, the staff person working to try to reestablish this commission, is to be more transparent in the process for how we are reviewing our cases, our internal practices. Now, one may say that there was a bias in the disposition of how the officers were treating the case, and that needs to be addressed internally. I think the question that you could pose more so than about the discipline of one case is, how are you as a department addressing explicit or implicit bias outside of just training, so that this type of situation doesn't keep reoccurring? Because one might say and look at this and have a different point of view, considering what lens they're looking from, considering that we are all people of color, we have a different lived experience. We might see a ton of bias in that process. Others who may not have that lived experience may have a different and may see something differently. But we do recognize there needs to be some type of action internally that has to happen in the culture of the police department. I think it's more of a question of you all having a saying of recommendation, saying, this is something where in looking at this case, a concern that was brought up was about bias, and how is that being addressed? I think is a fair point to make, because I think it is something that has to be addressed. But as to just talking about not agreeing with the disposition, I don't know, gets to what you're trying to get to overall in the organizational culture shift. If I'm speaking, not making any sense.
If I could jump in here real quick and hit on a couple things that we've discussed. And one is Kimberly is exactly right with this. It does go through another review with the chief of police. She can make recommendations above and beyond what have already been made with regards to discipline or corrective action. Or she could stand and concur with what's already been determined. With going back, I want to hit on bias with this case, implicit or explicit bias. Implicit bias, it takes much more of a pattern, so I want to focus on explicit bias. And there were some concerns voiced at this committee last time that if this individual was somebody of color, they would not have benefited from a very soft approach to the investigation. The third review, and the sergeant that reviewed it brought up the point that, well, there was somebody of color who admitted to drinking underage in this investigation, and that was consistent. Aaron, am I correct in that?
But can I just stop you there? Because I don't want to go down that road that I think we're about to go down. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the color of the person, of the police officer's skin, it was the behavior for which that the commission was observing that was concerning, that was kind of like, it did, because there's a point where it doesn't matter if you're implicit, you're complicit. And how are we addressing that? I mean, because at the end of the day, I think that is where this commission is going to be beneficial is addressing some of these things head on, and how is the police department going to move forward with addressing these perceptions that from a person watching shows some form of bias. And so I think that I don't want to speak for the commission, but I also don't want to go for tit for tat of who or what person's race might have been. I think how are we addressing this within the culture of the department is the question. Should that be addressed in their recommendation?
So, and my only point in that is to show consistency here. It's not to, I want to say, expand it to the entire department or all investigations. It has my point is very narrow. But with regards to how are we using this process to improve, one, our internal investigations, and two, bring additional awareness to what could be behaviors that are resulting in implicit bias. So the first thing I want to hit on is we took the opportunity, myself and Kimberly, to speak to all police supervisors about this case, about the mission of this committee, and give guidance as far as when people are reviewing this and doing an investigation, there's an expectation that it will be thorough. Things will not be overlooked. If they overlook, this committee will bring it back to our attention, and those individuals will be repeating the work that they should have done the first time, the members of the department. As far as implicit bias training, it's something that my 24 years addressing bias has been something that has always been part of the department. That is something that has improved. The training and its relevance has improved significantly since I've been there. It continues to improve, and with our new legislation coming through, and I'm sure more legislation coming through from the federal government, those efforts are going to become more robust and refined. I think in the future, one of the things that we correct in our third review here is if there's an accusation of bias, that needs to be specifically spelled out in the potential rule violations, and it needs to be reviewed specifically in addition to everything else, which might be a failure to investigate further and incompetency. It's this incident needs to be reviewed specifically also for implicit and explicit bias. So like you said, the short answer is it's something that's always been important to this department. It continues to improve and become more robust, and it will continue to be in the future.
Well, my hope here is that when you look at this commission and you see that, we're folks of color, and there's issues that we see that may be different than how maybe the department even sees it in certain instances. So my hope is that we can kind of connect in and better understand how we can be better, right? I mean, hopefully the input that comes from this commission can be something that can be additive and hopefully implicit or explicit in how you all as a police department look at these different issues.
So yeah, I mean, one, it's definitely a perspective that we could communicate back into our process, and it gives even people internally that may share that view, that external view that's concurrent with theirs, gives it additional credibility. They work together, and I think in this case, the third review has given us an opportunity to speak directly to our supervisors and be like, this is the reality of these complaints. They need to be thorough. They need to take everything into consideration, and you need to take the viewpoint that comes from the committee and incorporate it into, you need to take their concerns and address them. Now, I'm hoping in the future, I'll be quite honest, that we're able to use this 1, 2, 3 review and use this as an evolutionary point in the work that we're doing as a department and with the committee, that we will not be doing 3 reviews on cases in the future, that we'll be looking at them. If there's concerns, we will look at the body worn camera footage, all concerns, and what we feel are omissions from the from the investigation will be addressed one time and it'll be brought back. But, and I think that part of our job, mine, Aaron's, and Kimberly's, is to increase the credibility of the investigation in your eyes, and also increase the credibility of what this committee is doing as part of this process, and how it's beneficial to the process. Because if it passes your skeptical eye and it meets that, then it's going to rise to that level that it's going to, I think, be objectively complete.
Just to add on to that, Commander Glew, is that not only is it doing that, but also it's instilling trust in the community, where the community feels safe to actually make their complaints. We're nearly a year in, and this has been the most that we reviewed anything. We haven't had any complaints. Now, is that a result of there's nothing to complain about? Or is that a result of the community not having trust in a process? And so we will hope that this going forward allows the community to have that trust, that if they succumb to complain to the EPD, that their complaint is taken seriously, and is actually viewed in a light as though the complaint facts were true until proven differently. So I think that it will instill all of that from now into the future. So is there any more discussion?
I guess it is. Well,
I
I don't
actually have a comment. I didn't get to view the video with you guys. I actually went back to Commander Glew and got to see it a little bit after. So I kind of had the benefit of rewind that or stop it and asking a couple of questions. My only concern is, yes, obviously, had this, a child been Black or Latino, would have been handled differently. But that's only half of the concern. The other half is, here you have someone who's admitted to drinking and you didn't even bother to provide a field sobriety test, which is standard when you stop someone for a DUI. So yes, the concern is there some kind of bias that the officers aren't really seeing, but that we see from the outside? And also, what was it about this case in particular that they decided they weren't going to go through their procedures that they're supposed to be going through when they make this kind of a stop? And so it begs the question, if we kick it back, to the police department, what is the department doing? What can you tell us that you're doing, A, to train the officers to make sure that they do their field sobriety test? B, what are we teaching our officers, or how are we educating them to make sure that there's, no kind of bias when they come across any type of situation, whether it's a kid or an adult or whatever? So I think that it generates a lot more questions that I, as a commissioner, don't feel have really truly been answered.
There was a lot there. I think that the outcome, a large part of the recommendations so far have been corrective and training to hope that this doesn't happen again. It has been made known that in the memo, I apologize, I keep looking over at a memo for reference. That the one officer was very, very new on the street. I would say that we've taken this opportunity to positively point out some deficiencies that should not be replicated in the future.
Yeah, I mean, because if you have a field training officer with the rookie officer, and this is what he sees and learns and being corrected, I mean, then what kind of message are we sending to a new officer as far as, behavior when you make a DUI stop?
No, it's definitely, like you said, this is something we do not want to see replicated in the future. And internally, we've had some conversations with, one person may look at this and go, this met, if there was no further cooperation from him, it met probable cause. Some people will go, well, no, it doesn't. And I think that the minimum is there was not enough investigation done, period.
Yeah.
So even if you're somebody who says, well, the probable cause wasn't there, be like, well, okay, if there was more investigation done, fact-led investigation, then there might have been.
I mean,
Likely
maybe
would have been.
would have been enough to justify additional, requesting additional information or taking additional action, but that wasn't, and that's pretty standard when you suspect someone's drinking. So here you have someone who's like, yes, I've been drinking, and we're still not going to do a field sobriety test. So to me, it was confusing, and it was something that we don't want to see replicated with anyone. We want the do his job, no matter what the person they pulled over at, whatever the color of their skin is irrelevant. If you have someone who's admitted to drinking and driving and being underage.
Yeah, definitely agree with all of that. Definitely a concern, and that the recommendations for the policy violations are largely training and corrective discipline.
I mean,
Can I just say that we're gonna share this video also with the chief, so that the chief can, have a chance to review the comments you're making tonight. So again, because at the end of the day, the chief has to be the one that, makes that final determination. However, I think it's very fair that this is shared with Chief Barnes, so that she can have that opportunity to hear your additional feedback. But as it relates to the thoroughness of the review is, what we're here tonight to finalize.
that's what I want to go back to. I think that across the board, both Sergeant Warnick and Commander Glew and the commission were all on the same page that there was probable cause here for an arrest. There was a lack of investigation. There were a lot of failings. This whole situation, these guys got in an accident, and everything that happened afterwards that's been kind of discussed. It's a black eye. This whole situation is just a black eye on the department. But the thoroughness of the investigation, we've kicked it back 3 times. We've discussed it a whole lot. I don't think that Chief Barnes, particularly as an acting chief, with, not even a month under her belt at this point, is going to make any different recommendations. So, I think that the investigation is thorough. I think Commander Glew, Sergeant Warnick, you guys and your team have done everything we've asked of you. We wanted more body cam video. We wanted the other officers spoken to. You've done everything we've asked, and the investigation is thorough. We don't like the outcome. We don't like, really what it comes down to is we don't like the situation. We don't like this whole case. I think that as an entire commission of color, none of us like this, but that's not our job. It is part of our job to create some systemic change, I hope. That goes back to something that Rick said probably like in February, like, what are we here for? We're here to make positive change in the community, and hopefully kicking this back 3 times tells you guys what our expectations of you are as OPS. It tells the department that we're really on this. We're not just here to rubber stamp things and move them along to human services, that we expect the investigations to be thorough, that we have high expectations of the officers to do their jobs properly. I don't think we're going to get anywhere on this particular case, so I'm going to kick it to Junitha, because I think we're done here. It's thorough. It's done. I'd love to do what Nika said and attach a note that says, we're not happy. We don't like it. Maybe the chief will sit down and watch the video, and maybe she'll change her mind. But I think there's nothing else that we can do as a commission.
Thank you, Shahna. My only question, I know that we've discussed this, and I know, Commander Glew, you said that you have additional video, but what I want to ask the commission is, based on our discussion, based on our review of the documentation, and what has been done recently, do we have further discussion on this? Is there a need to go into executive session? in order to view the second video that Commander Glew states that he has.
And Commander Glew, I'm not sure if you're able to pull up the video. I'm remote and I can't pull up the video remote.
You're muted.
Yeah, I have the video. It's about 7 minutes long. I'm looking over here because we did specifically tell the reviewing supervisors to look at that video and to see what their summary was. I could definitely try to share it. I'm not 100% sure I can. I think I'm pretty sure I can. Don't rule out operator error. But like you said, it's about 7 minutes long. Aaron, are you able to see the body worn camera footage summary of that 7 minutes on any documents that you have?
Is the question here to this commission that we want to see an additional video?
That was my question, to determine whether or not if we wanted to go into executive session in order to view the video.
From my perspective, I would say no. I think we've kicked this can down the road long enough, from my perspective, but I can't speak for everybody else.
All right, so before we get everyone's perspective on it, is there any more discussion just on the DI 2013?
I have nothing further.
Okay.
Nothing further.
Neither do I.
All right, so we have no new business, but we do have the executive session. So if anyone feels as though we need to go into executive session, then I will need someone to move that we move into executive session in order to view the video, and we can vote on that. Is there a move? Is there a motion? Okay, I'm having no motion. So that being said, since we're not going into executive session, I guess our next thing is that, is there a motion to move this on to HSC?
Shahna?
Sorry?
I'll say Shahna. I think she made the motion earlier
Yeah,
that we,
I move to move DI 2013 to executive or to HSC.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed say nay. All right, well, having viewed this DI 2013 a few times and having no opposition, we move to pass this on to HSC at this point.
I will work on a note because I do want to make sure it was clear that there was a note that you want to attach to this. So we will add some language to this, and I will share with the group before we move it up, just to make sure it meets the spirit of what you're requesting.
And Commander Glew and I with Chief Barnes in person with the DI when we bring it to her. We'll sit down with her and discuss it with her as well. So just so you know, this isn't just going to be handed off or put in a mailbox. There'll be a discussion, a sit down with her.
I appreciate that personally.
Well, like you said, we'll definitely review this. There will be a discussion.
Okay. All right. All right. So moving on. Like I said earlier, we have no new business, and we are not going to executive session. So yes, Ms.
Kimberly
Richardson.
has something.
I just want to be clear. Again, I am working to figure out where we're going to have our next meeting, but it will be most likely in person. However, could you, either Commander Glew or Sergeant Warner, can you speak to where we're at with the next set of cases? will we be able to get them because it's July and if we're trying to live up to our request of getting them timely to people for the commissioner's review, we're very close to that point. So
I don't think for next meeting, we will have anything that'll have been through the chain. Just based on everything happening with background investigations, with complaints, intake, and just interviews. We don't have anything completed at this point. It'll be the meeting after that we'll have cases ready to go.
the question, did you start how many cases are we speaking of that we have down the pipe that we're?
We have, I believe it's 2 CRs at this point. CR 2101 and CR 2102 are the 2 complaints that we have right now.
So these are the only 2 complaints from 2021 so far?
Correct. Last I knew, there was no DIs. Correct me if I'm wrong, Commander Glew.
Yeah, I could look it up, but I think that's the only 2 things we have close to being completed and reviewed. If there's anything else we have, it's early in the intake process. I want to, Kimberly brought up a point about having stuff to this commission in a timely fashion. I want to take a moment to say that last month's getting stuff late was not a product of procrastination. It was a product of us trying to get things done as quickly as possible, and we just couldn't meet the deadline. So for whatever issue that caused at the last minute, I apologize. I just want you to know it wasn't out of procrastination. It was out of us trying to get it before you as quickly as possible, and it just kind of fell apart right at the end. So
with that said, September 1st is our next meeting if we don't have a meeting in August. On that docket will also be for September. We will need to at least nominate a new chair for the year, as the year will be over for Chair Shambi. So we just need to, I'll add that to the agenda, but just know there will be some additional business. And is there anything that you all would like to see on the agenda? Please share that with us. If you want to look at training schedule or understand more about what trainings are offered, at whatever point, if you have something as a commission that you want to discuss more about just how policies are decided or what type of training is actually provided, let us know so that we can prepare for that following meeting if we don't have a case to discuss.
One of the things that stands out to me, I mean, there's a lot of discussion within the police department around re-imaging. It'd be interesting to kind of get some insights into, that whole process and what are the plans, I would say, since we're doing this from a complaint standpoint, from a police complaint standpoint, but re-imaging, I mean, what is
reimagining? So can I just speak to that reimagining committee? I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. It's an initiative that the new mayor, Biss, had initiated. So it's it's a committee of community members like yourself who are looking at police from all different facets, to their budget, to looking at their calls and so forth. They are meeting. I have not yet seen, I have to be honest with you, I'm not involved in that discussion or staffed in that committee, but from my understanding that they are broken up into multiple committees. And I've asked the mayor if he's reached out to anyone from this committee or commission to get your feedback. I'm not sure how many that has happened with, but I know they're working. I just can't give that answer to you. We can find out more, but it's actually not internal process. It's a external commission or committee.
I plan to set a meeting with the mayor just to kind of give him a little bit about what we do and maybe some things that, where we can be involved or where we think changes can be made or something like that. So But I did have an opportunity to quickly say hi and say that we should definitely set up a meeting for that. So,
I mean, it seems like we have, some kind of, we kind of, what we do in those committees, they're kind of fit to what we're trying to do here in the city.
yeah, it does seem very good.
I agree. That's all I have. So I just wanted to share that before we close the business. I just wanted to just so we know where we're at with cases. I don't want to waste people's time to schedule a meeting if we're not prepared to have a meeting. So,
But hold on though. So are we saying that, for our September meeting, that's something that could be on the agenda?
there's
For us
two
to discuss?
cases that are in the pipeline. So case 210 CR 2101 and CR 2102 are in the process of review right now. It should be ready for August for you all to start looking at.
Rick, I don't know, maybe I'm missing what your question is. Could that be on the agenda, whether or not we're talking about having something going on with the reimagining committee?
Yeah, that was my question, really.
Oh.
That piece.
I mean, I guess I would say first go to their committee. I don't know
Yeah.
what they, I mean, honest to goodness, I don't know if you want to meet to talk about another committee meeting, but.
Well, I don't think we have to meet, but I think that it could be an agenda item that we at least could have some kind of insight and see how that connects with us. At least get, by September, we should have some better insights, I would think. At least from a
What I
city
will
perspective.
do, sure. I mean, what I will do is I'll share with you all the links to their meeting. I know that they've been posting their meetings. You can take a look at that. Again, not engaged with them very much about what they're trying to, or attempting to do.
Can I
but
share,
don't know.
can I take that as a 10-minute item and I'll get the information, I'll get the insights, and I can have 10 minutes on the agenda in September just to share what I know, just to kind of apprise this commission.
Oh, I thought you meant this via August meeting. Oh, this is for September? Okay.
I think it's by September.
I know you wanted to meet in August just to discuss this committee.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I was like, why? Okay, I'm so
Okay.
sorry. I
All right, I'm
misunderstood.
sorry.
I thought you were speaking
my
about
fault.
could we take the August meeting to discuss the committee? I'm like, that's
No,
not how you
no.
schedule your time. Yes. Okay, let's do that. That makes sense. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I misunderstood that. Sorry.
So we brought this up when we first started. I don't know if this is still a thing because I know we were all kind of social distancing and everything, but I know this committee, we had talked about doing some ride-alongs with the police that we had not set up as of yet. But we still maybe have that conversation. I mean, if anyone's interested, if not interested, then I won't.
I'm interested.
I think
I'd love to do
whatever was laid out, my opinion is whatever was laid out by your guys' original plan before COVID, we should try to pick that up and see that through. And plus, I think that following through what was originally laid out as a plan puts all of us in a more defensible position if somebody were to try to say, well, you guys didn't do this, or you guys didn't do that, or you didn't make yourself able to that. Following through your original plan goes a long way to thwarting any of that sort of nonsense.
All right, so how should we set that up, Kimberly? Should we have maybe a sign-up sheet kind of go around to set up some times that officers as well as the commission is available?
You guys can come in anytime to do a ride along. We'll send out an email saying that commissioners will be coming in, and you just go to the patrol office. Just come in.
Can we do this a little bit more organized, just because it sounds that may happen, but what we can do maybe is create up like a Google spreadsheet, so if people are interested, they can put their names in, so that way folks know who's coming into the building and they're not just random, commissioners. So we can just create that spreadsheet. And then are you guys looking to, for those who are interested, I'm assuming you want to do it in the months that we're not meeting, so between now and September, that way you can get some feedback in your September meeting, if that's possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then if there are certain shifts that you think we should be doing ride-alongs, if there's more activity in the evenings than during the daytime, it'd be good to know that too, so that we have a better idea of when we want to ride along.
Okay, that's great feedback.
Yeah, and just off, for the summertime, you're most of your, if it works for your schedule, you're going to be exposed to you're at the most bang for your buck, exposed to the most in your time from the ride along on the afternoon shift.
Okay,
And to
Probably.
Kimberly's point, with a Google sheet or however, myself and Aaron can help facilitate getting you guys ride alongs and your requests. So
Thank you. I like organization.
thank you for that.
I'm
Sounds
hearing
good.
some whispering.
We're good.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I am whispering to myself. Sorry. I'm good. Being in this building for 14 hours just kills you. Okay. I don't have anything else to add. Sorry if that was too much information. That's it. Thank you.
All right, any other discussions? All right, having none, I think that I would need a motion to adjourn. Anyone
I
want a
motion that we
motion?
adjourn.
Commissioner Marsh,
Yeah.
and thank you for a second. All agree, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Having here no opposition. Thank you guys. Thanks for thank you for having a great successful meeting. Thank you, Sergeant Warnick and Commander Glew, for staying with us, especially on this one DI. Thank you, Kimberly, for keeping us organized. And we will see each other again in September.
Hey, take care, everybody.
Everyone.
All right, have a good one.
Take care, everybody.